You're on StratNews Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale, and with me today is Australia's High Commissioner to India, Philip Green, familiar face on StratNews Global. But this conversation is happening after a considerable gap, so we have a chance to understand where is the bilateral relationship, and of course understand what's happening internationally. So, Philip, thank you very much for this time and this opportunity.
Always good to see you, Nitin.
Thank you. So let me start with the most obvious question about President Trump taking over as the boss in the White House and the ripples that it is causing across the globe. What do you think is the future of Indo-Pacific and Quad in particular because of his coming to White House?
Well, we always knew that Mr. Trump would bring his own character to the presidency. Each new president does. The United States has deep underlying interests in the Indo-Pacific, and so we expect a continuity to be that level of US engagement in our region. On the Quad, we've started in a very big and important way, because within 48 hours of President Trump being inaugurated, his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, chose to have a Quad meeting. I'm not sure that any other meetings of this consequence happened in the sidelines of the inauguration. And your foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, as well as mine, Penny Wong, were there, their Japanese counterpart. I think that's a pretty powerful signal of the new administration's commitment both to engagement with partners like India, Australia, and commitment to the Quad. So that's a great start.
That's, of course, the most obvious thing that he did. But one of the apprehensions in India and elsewhere, I'm sure in Europe and Australia too, is about Trump saying it's America first and the trade policies that he is following. We know what's happened with Mexico, Panama and Canada. Is there any concern in Australian mind about him trying to sort of cut down on some relationship or trade?
Well, look, we will engage with the Trump administration very deeply and watch closely how things unfold. We are underlining some important realities about our own bilateral trading relationship, that we have had a free trade agreement now for some 20 years where all US goods enter duty and tariff free into Australia. We have, I know there's a lot of discussion about surpluses, ever since 1952, the United States has a trade surplus with Australia. And then, the country on the planet that Australian businesses invest in most is the United States, and that means jobs and prosperity. So we will engage across the agenda with the Trump administration with clarity and optimism. And we think there are very good things to say about where we are in terms of trade.
Oh, great. So let's look at also the Quad as a compact where if Trump's policies so far articulated have been about keeping China out and keeping China under control, then Quad obviously is the main platform in the Indo-Pacific for him to go. Would he like to securitize the Indo-Pacific much more than it has already happened, or the Quad to be militarized in the sense that he wants more forces here, more deployment? What's your sense?
Well, let's be clear. The Quad isn't directed at any particular country, and its focus is on signaling to our region that these four democracies believe in a vision of an Indo-Pacific that is open and free and prosperous, and that we have an enduring commitment to that and are prepared to do things to support that vision. So that's where we are, and that's very much what the first Quad summit under the Quad foreign ministers meeting under Mr. Trump's second administration demonstrated. Look, we are engaging with our region to support the strategic interests that underline countries' sovereignty and ensure that they are able to make choices and ensure that they are not subject to coercion. And classic examples of this, maritime domain awareness, where we are offering capabilities to countries in the region so they can better understand what is happening in their waterways, including dark shipping, which is very important. on infrastructure, where we in Australia in particular are making big interventions in terms of supporting South Pacific countries in having access to high quality internet by giving them access to undersea cables on which they can be assured. And just one final area, you know that we have a region which suffers from environmental disasters from time to time. So working together as Quad countries, don't forget, it's the 20th anniversary right now of the Quad. And the reason why it started in initial stages was to support in the aftermath of the tsunami. And we go forward with a commitment to support the countries in our region when they face natural disasters.
Since you spoke about environment, I would come to the bilateral relationship between India and Australia a little later. Let's look at the environment as a security concern.
Yep.
Climate change is now upon us very clearly. Everywhere
Yep.
that you see, February in Delhi is getting warmer and warmer, which
Yep.
wasn't the case earlier. And I'm sure similar things are happening. Weather patterns are changing everywhere. How much of climate change mitigation, environmental disasters, or their mitigation occupies in the policy space in Australia and in the Indo-Pacific for you?
It's a huge preoccupation for us. Our near abroad to our east is focused on our Pacific Island partners. And you know, the threat of climate change is no longer science fiction for them. I mean, the science tells us that by 2100, there is a good chance that 5 of those countries will become uninhabitable. That's a huge challenge for them. And we work with them and with others to try to help them manage those challenges by providing resilience to their own economies, to provide infrastructure which will protect their societies from the worst outrages of climate change. And the other thing that we're doing is that Australia is putting itself forward together with the islands of the South Pacific Forum to be the host of the UNFCCC meeting next year.
Oh.
And that is a demonstration of the way in which we want to bring Pacific voices, which have so much to tell about climate change, to the world, and try to do more to support them as they deal with that difficult challenge.
That's great to know, because I think Australia, as a big country in the region, has that responsibility to take the lead and help them. And I'm sure India is also doing something similar in the region, trying to do with you.
It absolutely is, and we're seeing Mr. Modi's government do more and more in our neighbourhood, the South Pacific, and we warmly welcome that. And we work with our Indian partners to help ensure that the interventions that they make that can have the most bang for buck, if you like. So that's an area on which we're doing even more bilaterally.
That's good to know. Let me move from that to humanitarian aid and humanitarian assistance to Middle East,
Yep.
to Gaza, and the conflict that is ongoing there, maybe halted for a bit right now. What has been Australia's policy there, and what are you doing there, doing in that region to support?
Well, in policy terms, like India, we believe that the only sustainable solution to this is a two-state solution in which both of these countries, the state of Israel and the state of Palestine, would be able to live together in peace on defined boundaries. That's always been Australia's position, but I think the events of the last year and a half have only quickened our belief that we need to work as an international community towards that as much as we can. And India and Australia are close partners in that regard. We've of course supported the efforts that others have made to find this ceasefire, and Qatar, Egypt, and the United States have been congratulated for the efforts that they've made. A couple of things that we're doing. Firstly, we are deeply engaged in humanitarian relief, and I think we're now up to $95 million in humanitarian relief to the region as a result of this crisis. But the other thing that Australia is doing is we are leading a group of countries which have developed a declaration on the support of humanitarian personnel, and countries from 5 continents are involved in this effort. And it's terribly important because we have seen threats to humanitarian personnel in the context of this war, which has seen so much disaster. And we are trying to underline that in amongst all of the other concerns, and obviously we have deep concern for the Palestinians who've been affected in Gaza, but the support for humanitarian personnel to allow them to do their work, to be able to get essential relief supplies to people in distress is absolutely crucial.
True, and I think also health concerns which are taken care of by the humanitarian assistance there. But since we are on the subject of conflicts, what's your sense on the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Where is it headed?
I think I'm going to mostly pass on that. I mean,
Okay.
but I don't know where that is going, and India will have probably better insights into where that might go from your perspective. I would say that from our perspective, our effort is to support Ukraine and to put Ukraine in the best position in which it can negotiate some sort of way forward with Russia on this. That remains our overriding effort.
That's a fair stand to take, actually. I need to take a break. Don't go away. I'm in conversation with Australia's High Commissioner to India, Philip Green. I'll come back in a moment.
It will be a very, very spectacular tunnel.
We are here at the Indian Air Force's Air Force Station Hashimara. We're here to document the latest addition to the IAF's fighter jet inventory, the Rafale.
A threat from the north.
It's a beautiful aircraft to have.
Welcome back. I'm in conversation with Philip Green, Australia's High Commissioner to India. So, Philip, finally to India-Australia bilateral. How would you describe it?
We've never been at a point as high as what we are, and my Prime Minister has sent me here to take it even higher. So that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
And what are the new areas that you're looking at? Or even if old areas, what are the higher, kind of intensity that you're looking at?
No. We're always doing new things. So Prime Ministers agreed when they sat together last November that we would establish this renewable energy partnership. And we've listened very closely to Prime Minister Modi saying he wants 10 million solar rooftops. My country happens to be the country with the largest deployment per capita of solar rooftops in the world. And we're going to bring that technical capability and expertise to India and make sure that this effort that India is on is as successful as possible. In the defence and security field, it's difficult to enumerate all of the ways in which this is going forward. We've never exercised between our defence forces in the same way. We're doing new high-end level exercises. First time last year that we brought fighter jets to India. My own ambition, Nitin, is closer work together on maritime domain awareness. That's the way in which we each understand what is happening, especially in the maritime domain between us, the Northeast Indian Ocean. This is where our strategic geography intersects.
Sure.
And these are huge spaces,
Of course.
and neither of us has the capacity to fully monitor them. So this is a great opportunity for the partnership, either bilaterally or through the Quad, to better manage that. And the final thing that I want to say is we're very excited that our Australian universities are taking big interest in the Indian scene. Now, we know that a large number of Indians go for study in Australia, and that will continue, and that's great, but it shouldn't be a one-way street. And first of all, the opportunity was offered for Australian universities, any university in the world, to set up in Gift City.
Sure.
The only two universities in the world that have picked that up are Australian universities, and they are now teaching, and they are now successful. And since then, a further university has decided to open a campus will actually be in UP, and there's more to come. So I'm very excited about that because it gives the Indian public greater choice. They can go to Australia and get a high quality education there, but here, at a fraction of the cost and without the family dislocation, there's an opportunity for people to get access to high quality Australian education. A lot of other things I could say, but there's three biggies.
No, certainly there are three biggies, and you talked about defense, like you mentioned. Defense bilaterally, of course, is going higher, but there is also exercise Malabar,
Yep.
which is concurrently happening, and that is also happening at each exercise, or each edition of the exercise is going higher and higher.
Yep.
You spoke about maritime domain awareness. Are you also looking at exchange of critical information, like you said about dark shipping, also keeping the sea lanes of communication open and free, maybe some joint patrolling, any of those plans you have?
Well, look, in all of those things, we are doing more, and including the use of each other's territories, so that our ships and planes have greater reach. I can assure I can't list everything that we're doing
Sure.
on an environment like this, but I can assure your listeners and you that in each one of these domains, we are doing more incrementally, and sometimes more than incrementally each year.
Well, that's good to know. Also, on critical technology, India is looking at sourcing high-end technology, critical technology, emerging technology, as it is called in different ways. Space is one of the things. Cyber could be another. Anything happening there?
Well, of course, this is a vitally important domain for both of our countries. And, we used to talk about security very largely in terms of militaries and intelligence, but now there's this new domain of critical tech. And of course, each of us is sort of writing different things on this. In Australia, AI, quantum is very, very prominent. In India, we see your payment systems being very impressive. And let me say this about that traditionally, Australian tech companies to grow and globalize needed to go to places like Singapore or Silicon Valley or Berlin or something.
Sure.
And what I am doing is to identify to Australian companies in the tech sector that India is an opportunity for that growth and that global reach. And I'm seeing in the way in which Australian delegations come here. Let me give you a good example. The most recent Space Summit in Bangalore. Huge Australian delegation, one of the largest foreign delegations, and very active in engaging. They told me that India was the principal partner for their collaboration. And let me tell you one other thing about that, which is that a very large number of those Australian companies were founded or have CEOs people who are Indian origin.
There you
So it's great to see that circularity working, and the diaspora in Australia being part of the business relationship.
The closing of the loop is happening now in that completely. So that's one. India-Australia FTA has now done what, 5 years?
No, we've only been in force for about two. But let me tell you something about our trade. So, and the FTA is helping a lot in this. So think about India's exports to the world. Over the last 5 years, they have grown by 35%.
Sure.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But India's exports to Australia have grown by 66%. That is to say, in the degree to which Indian exporters and investors are benefiting from engagement with Australia is almost twice what it is with the rest of the world. And that's because we have strong complementary economies. We produce many of the things that India's firms need to grow. And because we have the first phase of our free trade agreement, which is delivering real benefits.
Right. So, in fact, that's very interesting and very impressive, I would say, if India is exporting, because India normally is seen as a laggard in exports. It's mostly importing. But if that is happening, but any areas you can flag where this is happening much more faster than before?
So, automotives. Okay. So, since the FTA has been in place, India's exports of automotive parts to Australia have gone up a full 100%.
Wow.
And then, so this is just in the last 18 months, 2 years. I think from memory, its agricultural products have gone up by 20% and textiles by 35%. Might be the other way around. Whichever it is, we're seeing in these key sectors, which are important to the Indian economy, that they're getting real benefit from the FTA and it's delivering.
That's great. So has concurrently connectivity increased, air connectivity between India and Australia? Are there any plans for that?
Yes, but not enough. So, so here's the thing. Studies tell us that Australia is the third most desired destination of the Indian tourist.
Sure.
But it's only the 10th most travelled. And one of the reasons for that is that, air connectivity is increased, but it's not where I would like to see it be. And so when I speak to my dear friends, the CEO of Indigo and Air India, not to mention Qantas, we're always talking about opening new routes to Australia, and those gentlemen are all very keen on this because new aircraft need to come on board.
Sure.
And I can tell you that each of the Australian states, their airports are very keen for greater connectivity between Australia and India. So more will definitely happen, Nitin, and that will drive even more Indian tourists travelling to Australia.
One of the things that can drive Indian tourists is having more frequent test matches. Border Gavaskar Trophy.
Yeah, well, what can I say? The great history is of you being much more successful, but we just had a tinsy amounts of luck in the last couple of months. But I know that will only drive Australian cricket fans to be even more interesting in what is the pinnacle of the global cricket challenge. And I hope that Indians will retain their very deep interest in engagement with Australia in that field.
True, and more Australian players are coming to the IPL.
Oh, totally. I mean, they're very familiar with one another, and it's a good addition to our bilateral relationship that we have so many Australian cricketers here who've become very familiar figures, perhaps even heroes, for some of your youngsters.
Absolutely. So that's a great note to end our conversation, but always a pleasure to speak to you and insightful as always. I hope to catch you again in some time, but all the best.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Nitin.
Thank you. Do keep watching StratNews Global. We'll keep bringing to you these interesting conversations and of course insights about global politics, global relations. Don't go away. You know where to subscribe to us, and of course your feedback is important. For the time being, it's goodbye.